Today we are going to learn one of the staple starter suits, Freedom. So Freedom is a 400 cost unit that has the popular reputation of being a jack of all trades type of suit since past Versus titles such as Extreme Versus Full Boost. The reason why he is considered a jack of all trades is because he has good overall mobility, is easy to deal good damage with, and teaches many fundamentals such as landing garobis. In addition to that, the melee for this unit is also incredibly impressive as well, due to its melee priority triumphing over many suits in the game. This guide mainly teaches you how to play Freedom as a support, often called a back, as I have personally found Freedom to be better played in the support role compared to the front role due to its kit. You can also of course play him front if needed due to lower cost partners, but he is mainly played as a back. So when you play Freedom, you should be positioned accordingly based off of the cost comp. So for example, if the comp was a 500-400 comp, which is the #1 comp by the way, with the 500 suit being a Unicorn Gundam, then preserve your life and let the Unicorn die first to avoid overcost situations. Even if they try to zone with Unicorn, try to stay alive just the same in order to prevent overcost by consistently staying in minimum redlock range. You have the tools to do so provided that he generates a strong enough presence. Try to practice this comp with a friend in team-free 2v2 lobbies. If you're playing in Shuffle and get into a 400-300 comp for example, then you would ideally die first. However, just because you should die first does not mean that you must go out of your way to die for no reason. Many players think that is the case and close matches faster than they should have originally lasted. Additionally, the ideal burst for Freedom would be Lightning Gear if your goal is to play in a comp that is structured, i.e. 500/400. The reason for this is because you take less damage, have longer redlock range, have a longer burst duration, have faster ammo regen speed, and your bullets have enhanced tracking. By doing this, you survive longer for your front partner, while also providing efficient support. However, if you're playing in Shuffle, then picking Blaze Gear would actually be a better option due to many players not knowing what they're doing in that environment in general. This way you deal more damage, move faster, and can close the match much easier, thus allowing you to essentially solo carry if you time your burst correctly. On a final note, you should be half bursting as opposed to just emergency bursting or just bursting with a full bar in general. You can earn burst by blocking an initial hit, taking or dealing damage, dying, or even when your partner dies. So basically you have many opportunities to earn burst for yourself by simply playing normally as a support. By half bursting, you can maximize on burst plays by getting multiple bursts in order to have several chances to turn the match in your favor. If you emergency burst, you're not only wasting your overall damage potential for the match, but you will also receive a boost penalty for doing so as well. Now let's say you as Freedom only bursted once the entire match because you wanted to full burst. Now compare this to another Freedom player that bursted 2 times. You had 1 play, while the other player had 2 chances to make their own. So this is why half bursting is recommended in general compared to full bursting. So that covers the general description for Freedom. Now we'll talk about each of his abilities, along with when is the best time you should use a specific ability as well. Starting off, let's talk about one of the main sources of your damage, the beam rifle. This weapon has an ammo count of 8, with fast bullet speed that has respectable tracking, and does 80 damage on the first shot. Each shot comes back after about 2.9 seconds. This is your main source of pressure that you will be sending to the enemy team during neutral game. Although Freedom has an ammo count of 8, you want to use your beam rifle shots sparingly, in synergy with your other abilities. Freedom CSA is what is considered to be a landing punish shot, where when timed properly, you will execute a down on the enemy player if they do not move out of the shot in time. This will usually hit when players are not looking at you, or are just in general, not even step diving. This ability takes about 2 seconds to charge up and will deal 120 damage that comes with an instant down upon contact. A very important thing that I want you guys to take caution of is that when you're trying to use this ability, do not use it after you inputted a different range ability. So for example, if you wanted to do A into CSA, which is inputting main gun and then canceling into CSA, doing so would actually yield nerfed damage, which is around 30%. So instead, try shooting a main gun shot and then boost dash before you actually use the CSA. This way you avoid the damage penalty that the original combo possessed, One last tip I have for you guys is that after the shot from the CSA animation has released, input a boost dive to cancel out of the vernier state. Doing so will save you time and allow you to get back to neutral much more quickly. This not only applies to the CSA, but it can also apply to your AB and AC as well. Moving on, a very good reason to keep using your CSA is so that you can allow time for your weapons to recharge, since all a charge shot takes is just time and not ammo. Without your ranged weapons, you're fairly useless, so by managing your ammo well, you'll be more useful for your team. Freedom's AC is why people partly fear playing against him, as this ability alone will make the enemy team cautious of performing poor movement. The reason for this is because this ability has a quick startup time with very good muzzle correction as well. This is most likely where most of your damage will come from. Not only does it have those two strong properties going for it, but it also deals around 219 damage as well, which is very good for an ability that has strong stats with a short 8-second cooldown. To aim with this ability, just use it before the enemy touches the ground with their feet. The ability would do the rest of the work for you thanks to its fast startup speed and cheesy tracking. A very important thing to mention is that you can actually cancel out of the startup animation with a boost dash right before the ammo for the ability is actually wasted. The reason why you would want to do this is so that you can set up another opportunity to hit them again without wasting ammo on an AC attempt that you already knew was not going to hit them in the first place. Since this ability is a Garobi, you can use this attack against targets while in greenlock range to stop them from using an ability that causes them to be in a state of vernier for a reasonably lengthy period of time, such as a GPO2 firing off a nuke, or a Sazabi still in an ongoing Garobi animation. It's also worth mentioning that the farther you are away from the person you're using it on, the less damage they will take due to distance differences. One final tip that really should be mandatory is that you should always input your AC as 2AC to avoid the forced self-camera that the ability produces. So when it comes to Freedom's sub-weapon, there are two variations. His neutral sub, which is 5AB, that is fat in size and does the most damage, which is 130. And with the latter being the 2AB, which is a faster and smaller shot at the cost of doing less damage, which is around 85. His sub-weapon has an ammo count of 2, with each count having a 5.4 second cooldown. In general, you want to have pre-existing beam rifle pressure out before you use 5AB so that the opponent wastes more boost, thus increasing your chances to hit with it. In full boost, neutral sub wasn't really an ability that I would consider to be reliable. However, in Gundam Versus, it seems like beam size plays a huge role in determining whether or not a bullet will hit. Since 5AB is average in terms of speed and is pretty thick, it would be safe to say to use this over 2AB in matches against competent players. So what about 2AB, right? Well, this ability is simply used to punish bad landings for players who rarely step dive. To aim with the 2AB, input it right before the enemy's feet touches the ground. It also helps to consistently think about situations in your head such as, when are they going to land, or should I use 2AB or simply my AC? For players that do step dive consistently, I would personally just use 5AB and not gamble on the 2AB. Again, since size matters, they may step dive in the direction of the neutral sub and receive damage for it. Step dive spam has drastically ruined range abilities such as Freedom's 2AB that used to be a lot better in full boost due to the movement being way more punishing. Using 2AB against players that move well can be done, of course, obviously, but it's a gamble that is not worth taking, to be honest. To sum it up, 2AB is useful when you know for certain an enemy is bad at movement and can easily be punished for their landings. If they can actually move and spam step dives, you should use 5AB instead. Freedom's BC allows him to perform a role in either the left or right direction by inputting 4 or 6 respectively. He has 2 roles, with each having a 5-second cooldown. This ability acts as a means to extend a melee confirm, or to simply perform a quick chain of ranged attacks during the animation of the role itself. So in general, when you input BC, you will enter into a role animation. You can use a Garobi, do either A cancelling into AB, or A cancelling into AC, or just simply melee. You can also use a BC as a counter method to incoming melee attempts by chaining a main into sub, or even to just flat out use AC during the animation to surprise them. This method is highly undervalued online, and I strongly recommend that you consider using it. It is also important to mention that this ability does not cut tracking, but simply exists to allow you to shut down melee approaches with the fast chain of range cancels, or to even act as a melee extension. Should you ever find yourself in a situation where you become overheated and need to move out of the way from an incoming attack, use BC if you're not confident that you can block it. Freedom's burst attack is one of the few melee supers in the game to have high cut resistance, as the startup for the super itself is somewhat challenging to cut with range attacks. However, once Freedom finishes the melee animation during the super, he is left in a state of vernier the moment he uses a Gerobi. It is during this time that you are highly susceptible to attacks, so for that reason you must plan ahead when you wish to super someone. So, when is a good time to super somebody? In general, you should always super an opponent if the person that you're supering is separated from their partner. You have to do this because it's pointless to be stuck in the super animation while the partner of the person that you're supering can easily shoot you down. It's just not worth it damage wise and HP wise. So now, after discussing Freedom's kit, let's actually dive into the different melee inputs that Freedom has. As previously mentioned at the beginning of the guide, Freedom's melee has good priority that can help you out when it comes to approaching with melee. However, it is very important to take note of what type of redlock range that you're in when you attempt to melee someone. If you didn't know, there are two redlock ranges, regular redlock range and inner redlock range. Inner redlock indicates that your melee attacks have a much higher chance of hitting. You can know that you're in inner redlock range by seeing a smaller redlock inside of the pre-existing redlock. 8B is not used as often as the other melee inputs, but it is said to have the highest priority compared to the other melee inputs if the input itself were to clash with another melee attack. So basically, if you find yourself in a situation where you know for certain that you would have to clash melee, then this will be the preferred input. 46B is Freedom's most commonly used melee input when it comes to approaching, due to the startup speed being insanely fast. On top of that, by using 46B in general as a melee opener, you can have the luxury of moving out of the way from an incoming range attack, such as a beam rifle shot. The second most commonly used melee input is Freedom's 2B. The reason for this is because it is what is considered to be a hop mechanic. Hops allow you to gain instant vertical distance and is actually way better in this game due to being able to be combined with a step dive. Before I get into the details on how to use this mechanic, I want to say that you really shouldn't use this melee input alone just to melee somebody, because I assure you, you will be punished for it. So how do we make good use of the 2B? Well, as stated before, you can use the 2B in synergy with the step dive mechanic to play neutral a lot safer. The reason why this makes playing neutral a lot safer is because you're consistently producing fast movements to get out of the way from incoming shots, and you're also cutting tracking at the same time. So to input this, just input 2B followed by a step dive in any direction, preferably backwards. However, do not use the hop mechanic if nobody is looking at you, because it's a waste of energy, honestly. Only when you know for certain that people are either going to be locked onto you in the future or are locked onto you should you perform this mechanic. While doing this, you have to be attacking, of course, so being able to input the mechanic on top of inputting attacks is required. Additionally, you can use this mechanic to easily dodge funnels or even to quickly get away from incoming melee as well. This may seem very hard to input for many players new to the game, but I promise you this is well worth it and can also be applied to other suits with hop abilities as well. CC8B allows Freedom to start melee combos off with good proration, which leads to more damage as a result. When I showcase the starter melee combos later on, you'll notice that CC8B combos do a lot of damage thanks to the good proration that CC8B offers. It is suggested to use CC8B combos when you're in inner redlock range and are also confident that you can hit the enemy as well. Doing CC8B combos will allow you to hurt the enemy pretty bad without being in burst. However, do not go out of your way to only use CC8B combos, but do so if an opportunity comes your way that will also not have any repercussions. 5B is mainly used when you're trying to win a Rainbow War. I don't recommend using 5B to start off melee approaches in general. 46B is a much safer way to do so, and the damage is only reduced a little bit in terms of combo potential. However, this does not give you an excuse to simply walk up to a player and spam melee like crazy, as the action by itself is what allows many players to punish you for trying to melee them. Please don't turn into an Exia/Barbatos meme. Instead, think of Freedom's melee as a handy tool that you have access to in case the opportunity arises in which you can use it, or to punish players that want to try you and melee themselves. Use a melee route based on the specific situation while also taking into consideration the player's skill itself. But most importantly, do not try to engage a melee orientated suit such as Epion, as he will shred your HP very quickly without even trying if he can land just a single AB route on you. So to sum it up, do not go out of your way to melee people, and just put the concept of how range attacks is greater than melee attacks at the back of your mind to avoid taking unnecessary damage. Remember, you are the support, and it does not do your front any justice at all to die because of selfish melee attempts. So after discussing everything about Freedom's kit and the melee itself, I am now going to show you a quick demonstration of starter range combos along with starter melee combos.
僕はもう泣かないって決めたからさせないここか僕はもう泣かないって決めたからさせないここか外さないいける これ以上は無意味だ見えた なぜだそこを突風だ当たるもんかこれ以上は無意味だ
So, to review everything we just discussed, all you're doing when you play Freedom is to provide range support for your front, while also having an objective to land as many ACs as possible for quick and easy 200 plus damage. Do not blow through all of your ammo in between AC cooldowns. Poke with your main followed by sub, and use CSA between the pokes to save up on ammo. If you need to defend yourself from melee attacks, use 2B plus step dive movements to quickly get away from them. You can also use your BC by performing a main gun into AB chain to fend off melee attackers as well. In terms of countering melee with melee, if you're 99% confident that you can manage to melee them, try to go for a CC8B melee combo. If you're about 70% confident that you can win the melee encounter, just use 4-6B to approach them, and then use 5B if a Rainbow War breaks out. Only use your super if your target's partner is far away, or if needed, as an emergency melee counter if you find yourself in that type of situation, which tends to unfortunately happen a lot in NA lobbies. Other than that, that's about it. Freedom is a fairly basic suit to play that teaches you how to play neutral well, melee, and even how to use tech such as charge shots and get OBs. As always, if you wish to join my Discord to ask questions about the game and to also meet a bunch of other new players, then you can check out the link in the description box. Additionally, if you would like to support me, then feel free to buy me a coffee, which is the equivalent of $3 by going to the link also found in the description box. All donations will be used for Gundam Versus DLC to allow me to teach other people how to use them. and it will also go towards PlayStation Plus membership as well. If you're interested in Gundam Versus tutorial videos such as this, or even Gundam Versus DLC coverage, then feel free to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching guys, and I hope this video helped you have a better understanding on how to use Freedom Online.